morning. Hope everybody had a wonderful evening. We'll start in a second. I got to wait for my dean to get in here. Can he hear? Hey. I'm going to ask Mr. Coomer if he'll open us in prayer.
To serve you today, to do this work that you've called us to and given us a great opportunity to do. I pray that you would help us to have wisdom, mercy, and compassion in all that we do, and that our words, our thoughts, and our deeds are pleasing to you. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay. Mr. Hitchens.
Yes, sir. I apologize today. I left my glasses at home, and for emergencies like this, I saved these from last year that I broke. So I can't afford glasses, but I certainly can't read without them. My bill is modified open rule, last one down, House Bill 703. This is a pretty extensive bill. We spent about an hour on it in committee yesterday. It passed out unanimously. And I was asked to carry this. I hadn't done the work, but I initiated this program when I was the Commissioner of Public Safety back in 2005. And what it deals with is critical incident psychology management. And in the public safety arena, PSTD is alive and well. We have people all the time that suffer from the things that they see day in and day out. We had 4 suicides that I dealt with during my time in the department. 3 of them were actually successful. One fellow shot himself in the head and survived for years before he died. Unbeknown to me was probably how much alcoholism and drug abuse that got involved for people that were trying to block out the pain. And we started this program I went to a conference over in South Carolina where they were doing it. We were the first state in the country to be certified. It is expanded now. Not only are they doing it in the Department of Public Safety, all state agencies are doing it. And now they're taking it on for local agencies. Yesterday we had about 20 people come testify before the committee, and it was kind of heartbreaking, and it was also warming to me to see that it had done so well after I had left. But one individual had gotten to the point that he actually went to a hotel room and tried to hang himself with his belt, and the belt broke, and he woke up in the floor. So this has been very successful in those who had intervention. Law enforcement officers, firemen, people in the public safety arena are often scared to go to their supervisors. If they come and tell you they've got an emotional or a psychological problem, the first thing you're going to do is take them off the road, put them in an administrative capacity, and send them for evaluation. And it can be career terminating. When they're allowed to go and speak to a peer review who has confidentiality and somebody who's been through the same process, we found that it's very successful, and it turns a lot of people around. When I saw about 20 people come through yesterday and talk about how they become alcoholics and lived off the bottle and gotten divorced and separated from their families, and they got into this program and it resurrected them, and I was very proud. So that's essentially the bill in short order. I appreciate any consideration.
I would have hated to have heard it in long order. Ms. Smith.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. We have just not been able to find this legislation in our books over here. We might be the only ones, but it helps to glance through the bill to have knowledge of it. Thank you, sir.
It was a late afternoon bill. Mr. Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The gentleman in the well, is it not true that some of the best money that the taxpayer of this state pays is for those public safety and all of the emergency workers in this state that do suffer from these traumatic post-traumatic stress disorder, and this is a small price to pay for guidance?
It is a small price to pay. I just know from my perspective how much it costs to send a candidate when we do all the evaluation. You know, when they come into us, they're very healthy. One of the first things they have to do is take a psychological evaluation. They have to go see a psychologist. They have to take an examination. And very certainly, we're looking for people with certain personality characteristics that we don't want in law enforcement. So they come to us whole. We spend probably a couple $100,000, send them to school for 7 months and equipping them, and then we use them for 2 or 3 years, and they do something that gets them in trouble, we get sued about, or they leave the agency and we lose that money and start over again with somebody else. So not only is something that has its human form of negativism, but it also, I think, is financially a struggle for the taxpayers to keep up.
Ms. Hughley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Representative Hitchens, I'm over here. Did you speak to the cost of creating this?
We certainly did. It's $1.3 million. And the truth is, they're already spending it. They're just taking it out of Hyde in the Department of Public Safety because they're doing it. All this will be is putting the money in the appropriation separately. And this is not just for, as I said, state. It's for personnel in the National Guard, the fire community, the EMS community. We had one lady testify yesterday that was a dispatcher, and I never thought about it from that perspective, but she had real problems in that she was involved in one where somebody was being raped and then ended up being murdered, and the screaming and the background and everything that was going on, and she just felt helpless about what she was able to do, listening to it all on the phone while the law enforcement personnel would get there, and caused her nightmares and problems for a long time before she got counseling and was able to rectify her psyche.
No more questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you would, this is House Bill 728. It's under modified structure rule, the last bill on your list. And what this basically is, when we passed last year House Bill 338, we had a companion bill that went with it, 237, that was to help pay for this. That's the chief turnaround officer to help these low-performing schools. And the money for that, we had placed this in there where we could give a tax credit to people who would contribute to a $15 million fund that we wanted to use to help these low-performing schools. And we sent it over to the Senate. The Senate took care. They lowered it to $5 million, which I can live with. We need the more, but they put a sunset on it of 3 years. Now we've already had one of the years, and so we want to. All this bill is doing is to remove that sunset, where we can go ahead and do that. I'd like to say that fund has already been pledged this year of $3 million. So we're only $2 million that more we need to do, and they'll help these schools. Mr. Chairman, that's the bill.
Any questions? No questions. Thank you. Mr. Watson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I bring before you today HB 571. Should be at the top of your page. First one, open rule. This is dealing with the magistrates, just updating their retirement fund, making some changes, no cost to the state, and just bringing them up to date. And I appreciate your support.
Mr. Watson's been about 4 times, and we hadn't had any questions yet, so y'all want him to come back, or, okay.
I would greatly appreciate it.
Since he blew it the first time, he's got to come back 2 more at least. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Wilkerson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I bring to you the second bill on modified open rule right above 683 behind 493, HB 666. This is the bill that I've brought before, and I think I've addressed the representative's question, and Chairman Willard said that he did not need to amend it, but I would take any questions regarding the license plate frame bill and ask for your favorable consideration.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Belton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the same vein as Chairman Hitchens, bring before you two different bills dealing with the military. It's a very sad fact that 22 veterans kill themselves every single day in America. And these two bills are helping modified open rule, HB 699 and 700. The first one's a very simple firefighter certification. It's a bill that Florida has. It allows firefighters to use their basic training for civilian basic training. The second one is one that's asked by the National Guard. The governor has $1 million invested already into the budget for service cancelable loans to include graduate level programs. I appreciate your favorable consideration.
Under 700, Mr. Belton, would you like to use the word accredited sometime in this?
Yes, sir. It's for accredited. We already have a system in place for college education for service cancelable loans for the National Guard, and this includes adds that to graduate level service cancelable loans.
No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Bonner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today I bring you House Bill 487. It is the third down under modified structure rule. This is an amendment to the Disaster Volunteer Relief Act, which would include the Civil Air Patrol and provide them with the same courtesies we currently provide our state employees who are members of the Red Cross. This provides them paid leave in the event of a natural disaster in which they volunteer with the Civil Air Patrol. It is only granted through direction through the Georgia Emergency Management and through their department head. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll stand for questions.
Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question for clarification. This applies wherever they go, not just out of state, but just clear
No,
that
sir.
up
This
for me.
only applies to two categories: a named disaster within the state of Georgia, and then a named disaster with a contiguous state in which we have a reciprocal agreement. So this does not allow a member of a Civil Air Patrol to volunteer for a disaster out in Wyoming per se, but only those that touch Georgia.
Mr. Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Representative Bonner. Is it not true that basically what this does, the Civil Air Patrol is the auxiliary of the United States Air Force, and it basically gives the same benefit to them as the Georgia State Defense Force?
That is correct.
Thank you.
No more questions. Thank you. Mr. Hilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I bring to you House Bill 756 at the bottom of your page under structured rule. This bill was brought to me by the mayor of Berkeley Lake, who has a fiscal year-end reporting period of December 31st. In our current statute, December 31st is when you're required to report the use of your SPLOST proceeds. So about half the cities in Georgia right now are not in compliance with how the statute reads. And so we're changing it to be 180 days post your fiscal year close to give allow everyone to get into compliance.
No questions. Thank you.
I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention House Bill 698, the specialty license plate for the Tennis Foundation. Thank you.
Mr. Petrie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Bring to you House Bill 618, which is halfway down under modified structured. This is a bill that would incorporate the city of Skidaway Island, about 8,500 people, strong grassroots movement in Chatham County to incorporate the island as a city. And we went through governmental affairs, checked all the boxes, have followed every procedure to the letter, and I would ask for your support.
Is that the landings?
It would include the landings and others. Yes, sir, that's correct.
Is that community entirely gated?
The landings is, Chairman.
No more questions.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members of the committee. I bring to you HB 626, fifth down on modified structured rule. It would call for the incorporation of Sharon Springs in the southern portion of Forsyth County. This city would be approximately 50,000. Any questions I'm happy to take, but one of the key distinctions within the bill that I'd like to note to the committee is that it would take 57.5% in order for this to pass.
Where did that number come from?
Mr. Chairman, the thought was we put together a study committee, 12 individuals appointed by 7 members of the Forsyth delegation and 5 members of the Board of Commissioners. Our feeling was if we're going to change government, we should do it with a mandate. We vacillated between 55 and 60, to be honest with you, sir, and we ended up compromising at 57.5. Our feeling is that large of a margin does present a mandate and truly gives self-determination and opportunity within Forsyth County.
Ms. Hughley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the gentleman at the podium, Mr. Jones, what is going to happen to the health of the remaining county? I guess this is unincorporated area that's going to become a city. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
So how would that affect the financial health of the remaining county?
The feasibility report tells us that the city itself is absolutely viable. The county commissioners also did a report through Georgia Tech that gives an indication in terms of how the finances will sit. Generally speaking, the county itself is approximately 225,000. It's one of the fastest growing counties in the state of Georgia. The only city that is incorporated within the county itself is a city by the name of Cumming, and it has approximately 6,000 residents right now. So it's a vast majority of it is unincorporated.
Mr. Coomer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Jones, is this your first bill to present to the Rules Committee?
It is, Mr. Coomer.
I thought so. I have a question for you. I noticed that in the bill that was presented just before you, Representative Petrie also had a bill to incorporate a city, and his bill was 43 pages long. Your bill is 42 pages long. Can you tell me what you left out of your bill that was included in Mr. Petrie's bill?
I appreciate the question, and I'll get back with you on that.
So you can't answer my question?
I cannot answer your question.
Mr. Chairman, that causes me some concern, but I'll...
No more questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Epps.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. I bring to you this morning on the modified structured rule, third from the last in that grouping, House Bill 695. Mr. Chairman, I'm not trying to be nagging or persistent in this in any way, but I just want to make sure I cover my bases. This is a license plate honoring the Georgia Forestry Foundation, in turn which calls attention to Georgia's working forest and what it provides for the citizens of this state and the industrial impact it has upon our state. The funds raised from this tag will be dispersed by the Georgia Forestry Foundation in their educational enhancement programs. Thank you, sir.
No questions. Thank you. Mr. Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm bringing you House Bill 777. Very lucky number there, instead of 666. This is the historic Chattahoochee Compact that I'm asking to be repealed. The state of Alabama has quit their funding for this particular compact, and Georgia has too. We've checked to see if there's any outstanding bonds or any indebtedness, and there are none, and so I'm asking that we repeal the historic Chattahoochee Compact.
Any questions from Mr. Green? No questions. Thank you. Members, if you've got one you want to say anything about. Mr. Benton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to put my name beside House Bill 695.
Ms. Hughley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to put my name beside the 3/6 bill for Mr. Wilkerson.
Mr. Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to place my name by Representative Bonner's bill, HB 487, and also Chairman Epps' bill, HB 695.
Mr. A. Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to put my name beside House Bill 703 and 695.
Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to put my name by House Bill 487. Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right, first thing on the agenda is we're going to set a supplemental calendar for today. Under modified open, HB 683, do I hear move? Move. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that's the supplemental calendar for today. All right, then we'll set the calendar for tomorrow. That'll be Wednesday, February the 7th. Under structured rule, HB 756. Move in a second. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Okay, it's under modified structure, HB 728. Move in second. All those in favor signify by raising your arm. All opposed, same sign. Y'all were actually paying attention. Under modified structure, HB 626. Have a move and a second. All those in favor signify by aye. It's on. Under modified open, HB 700. Have a move, two moves, so that's the second, third. All those in favor signify by yes. Yes. Okay. Under open rule, HB 571. All those in favor signify by okay. Oh. I'm gonna want y'all to sign up for something here in a few minutes. You're awfully agreeable. I don't know what's going on. Okay, under open rule, HB 777. All those in favor signify by aye. Well, that's plenty. Thank you.